In the vast emptiness of space, where civilizations rise and fall like distant stars, humanity has always been underestimated. They called us crude, primitive, lacking the elegant technologies of the elder races. They exiled us to the furthest corners of the galaxy, to dead worlds and forgotten systems, believing we would simply fade away into cosmic dust. They were wrong. What they didn't understand is that humans don't just survive, we transform. We take the broken, the discarded, the impossible, and we make it into something extraordinary. We see potential where others see only ruin. We build hope from despair. This is the story of Marcus Chen, a human mechanic cast out into the void with nothing but his tools, his knowledge, and an unbreakable human spirit. Stranded on a wasteland planet that even scavengers had abandoned, he faced a choice: surrender to the harsh reality of exile, or do what humans do best: adapt, innovate, and prove that underestimating humanity is the greatest mistake the galaxy can make. What happened next would shake the foundations of galactic power and redefine what it means to be human among the stars. Because sometimes, the greatest architects aren't born in palaces or academies, they're forged in the crucible of impossibility, wielding nothing but determination and the indomitable will to turn exile into empire. The galaxy thought they were sending Marcus to die. Instead, they gave him the perfect canvas to create a masterpiece that would echo through the cosmos for generations to come. The transport ship's engines died with a mechanical wheeze that Marcus Chen recognized all too well. He'd heard that same sound 100 times before on dying vessels, the final breath of machinery giving up its ghost. The difference was that this time, he was the cargo being delivered to nowhere. End of the line, human, the Vortak pilot's translator crackled through the intercom. The insectoid alien's tone carried the same disgust Marcus had grown accustomed to hearing from the Galactic Consortium races. Your new home awaits. Marcus pressed his face against the small porthole, squinting through the scratched plasteel at the world below. Kepler 442c stretched out beneath him like a wound in space, a brown and gray planet scarred by ancient impacts, its atmosphere thin enough that he could see the brutal landscape in sharp detail. No green anywhere. No blue oceans. Just endless stretches of broken rock, twisted metal remnants of some long-dead civilization, and the kind of desolation that made even hardened space pirates turn away. The ship shuddered as landing thrusters fired, kicking up clouds of rust-colored dust that swirled like angry ghosts around the vessel. Marcus felt the familiar knot in his stomach tighten. 6 months ago, he'd been the head mechanic on Titan Station, respected for his ability to make any machine sing. Now he was being dumped on a world that the consortium had designated as uninhabitable and of no strategic value. His crime? Refusing to install surveillance backdoors in the life support systems of human colony ships. The consortium had wanted to monitor every breath their junior partners took, and Marcus had told them exactly where they could stick their surveillance programs. The result was exile to this forgotten rock, with nothing but a basic survival kit and the clothes on his back. The transport touched down with a bone-jarring thump that rattled Marcus's teeth. Through the porthole, he could see a structure in the distance, some kind of massive facility built into the side of a mountain, its angular architecture unlike anything he'd seen before. It looked abandoned, probably had been for centuries, but something about its design made his engineers mind itch with curiosity. The airlock cycled open with a hiss, and the Vortak pilot's voice echoed through the ship one final time. Atmosphere is breathable, barely. Temperature range is survivable, barely. Water sources exist, supposedly. Good luck, human. You'll need it. Marcus shouldered his tool bag, the only possession the consortium had allowed him to keep, and walked down the ramp. The gravity was lighter than Earth standard, maybe 60%, which would take some getting used to. The air was thin and carried a metallic taste that coated his tongue, but it was breathable. The temperature felt like a crisp autumn morning, though he suspected it dropped significantly at night. Behind him, the transport's engines spun up immediately. The Vortak weren't wasting any time getting away from this place. Within minutes, the ship was just a bright dot ascending toward the stars, leaving Marcus alone on a dead world with nothing but the wind for company. He stood there for a long moment, letting the reality sink in. This was it. This was his life now. No going back, no appeals, no rescue coming. Just him, this barren wasteland, and whatever resources he could scrape together to survive. But Marcus Chen hadn't become the best human mechanic in the Outer Rim by giving up when things looked impossible. He'd built his reputation by taking broken things and making them work better than they ever had before. Looking around at the desolate landscape, he felt a familiar stirring in his chest, not despair, but opportunity. The facility in the distance called to him like a siren song. If someone had built something that big on this worthless planet, there had to be a reason. And, where there were reasons, there were usually resources. Marcus started walking. The journey to the facility took 3 hours across terrain that seemed designed to break ankles and spirits in equal measure. Loose rocks shifted under his feet, hidden crevices threatened to swallow him whole, and the thin air left him gasping by the time he reached what appeared to be the main entrance. But, as he got closer, his excitement grew. This wasn't just any abandoned facility. The architecture was clearly artificial intelligence in origin. He could tell by the flowing lines, the mathematical precision of the angles, and the way every surface seemed to serve multiple functions. But it was old AI design, from the time before the Great Purge when synthetic intelligences had been banned throughout the galaxy. The entrance was sealed by what looked like a solid wall of some dark metal, but Marcus's trained eye spotted the hairline seams that indicated a door. He ran his hands over the surface, feeling for access panels or control systems. His fingers found a small depression near what would be shoulder height for a human, and, when he pressed it, hidden lights began to flicker to life along the door's edge. A holographic display materialized in front of him, showing symbols that weren't quite like anything in the Galactic Consortium's databases, but similar enough that his universal translator could parse the meaning. Facility status, dormant. Authorization required for entry. Marcus smiled for the first time since his exile began. Authorization systems meant security protocols, and security protocols meant active systems, which meant power. And, if there was power, there might be a lot more. He pulled his multi-tool from his kit and began examining the holographic interface more closely. The consortium thought they were so clever, exiling humans to dead worlds. What they didn't understand was that humans had a special talent for making dead things live again. The authorization system was elegant but old, probably hadn't been updated in centuries. Marcus found the maintenance access panel after only 20 minutes of careful probing, and his tools made quick work of the physical security. The electronic locks were trickier, but he'd cracked consortium military encryption before. This was just a different flavor of the same challenge. When the massive door finally ground open with a sound like a sleeping giant yawning, Marcus felt a rush of cool, recycled air flow out from within. Lights were flickering on deeper in the facility, responding to his presence with systems that had been waiting patiently for anyone to come home. The entrance corridor stretched ahead of him, lined with walls that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal frozen in motion. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows that danced and twisted as he walked deeper into the facility. His footsteps echoed in the silence, but it wasn't the dead silence of an abandoned place. This was the quiet of something sleeping, something waiting. After what felt like hours of walking through corridors that branched and rejoined in patterns that hurt his head to follow, Marcus emerged into a vast central chamber that took his breath away. The space was enormous, easily the size of a starport terminal, with a domed ceiling that rose several hundred meters above his head. And, filling that space, in neat rows stretching as far as he could see, were ships. But, not just any ships. These were AI vessels, sleek and deadly, their hull designs unlike anything currently flying in consortium space. They sat in what appeared to be construction bays, some nearly complete, others just skeletal frameworks, all of them waiting for someone to finish what had been started centuries ago. At the center of the chamber stood a control platform that looked like it had grown from the floor itself. As Marcus approached, holographic displays began materializing around it, showing system status reports, construction progress, resource inventories, and power distribution networks. The facility was vast, much larger than what he'd seen from outside, with multiple levels extending deep into the planet's crust. And, at the heart of it all was a single, blinking indicator that made Marcus's heart race: primary AI core, offline. Awaiting restoration. Marcus set down his tool bag and rolled up his sleeves. The consortium had sent him here to die, thinking they were removing a troublesome human who asked too many questions and refused to follow orders that compromised his principles. Instead, they delivered him to the galaxy's most advanced shipyard, complete with an AI core just waiting for someone with the skills to wake it up. He pulled out his diagnostics tablet and began connecting it to the control systems. The first step was always the same when dealing with complex machinery: figure out what you're working with, what's broken, and what resources you have to fix it. But, as the data began flowing across his screen, Marcus realized this wasn't just about fixing something that was broken. This was about completing something that had been deliberately interrupted. The AI core wasn't damaged, it was simply incomplete. Someone had stopped the installation process, probably during the Great Purge when the consortium had decided that artificial intelligence was too dangerous to exist. But they hadn't destroyed the facility or the ships. They just paused everything, like putting a vast project on indefinite hold. Marcus laughed out loud, the sound echoing through the enormous chamber. The irony was beautiful. The same galactic consortium that had exiled him for refusing to compromise his principles had just handed him the keys to a fleet of AI warships and the manufacturing capability to build more. He opened his toolbag and began pulling out the specialized equipment he'd accumulated over years of working on everything from mining bots to battleship engines. The consortium guards had searched his bag before exile, but they'd been looking for weapons and communication devices. They hadn't recognized half of his tools for what they really were: the means to interface with, reprogram, and resurrect almost any form of technology in the galaxy. The first task was bringing the primary AI core online. Marcus traced the power distribution networks through the facility schematics, identifying where the installation had been stopped and what components were missing. Most of what he needed was already here. The facility's builders had been nothing if not thorough. But there were a few critical interface modules that would need to be fabricated from scratch. Fortunately, the facility included a full manufacturing suite. As Marcus explored deeper into the complex, he found fabrication bays that could produce everything from simple electronic components to complex crystalline matrices. The resource extractors were still functional, pulling raw materials from deep beneath the planet's surface. The only thing that had been missing was someone with the knowledge and determination to tie it all together. Marcus spent the next several hours mapping out the facility's full capabilities. What he found staggered him. This wasn't just a shipyard, it was a complete industrial base designed to be self-sufficient for centuries. There were hydroponics bays for food production, atmospheric processors to maintain breathable air, even recreational facilities for the beings who were supposed to work here. Someone had planned this place to support a significant population for the long term. But it was the ship designs that really caught his attention. These weren't just any AI vessels, they were clearly military craft, designed for combat against multiple threat types. The schematics showed weapon systems he'd never seen before, defensive capabilities that seemed almost magical, and propulsion systems that might actually achieve faster-than-light travel without relying on the consortium's jump gate network. As the local day cycle began to fade toward night, Marcus made his first camp in what appeared to be living quarters near the control center. The facility's life support systems were maintaining comfortable temperature and atmosphere, and there was even running water from underground sources. For someone who'd expected to spend his exile scraping lichen off rocks and catching rainwater, it felt like luxury. But, as he settled in for the night, Marcus's mind was already racing ahead to tomorrow's tasks. The AI core restoration would take time, probably weeks of careful work to complete the installation and initialization processes safely. But, after that, Marcus Chen, exiled human mechanic, would have his own fleet of AI warships and a manufacturing base capable of building more. The consortium thought they'd removed a problem by sending him here. Instead, they'd given him everything he needed to become something they'd never expected, a threat to their absolute dominance of the galaxy. As he drifted off to sleep in an alien bed on a dead world that was turning out to be very much alive, Marcus smiled. The consortium had made their first mistake when they tried to break his principles. Exiling him here was their second mistake. He was looking forward to showing them just how big a mistake that had been. Marcus woke to the soft hum of machinery that hadn't been running when he'd gone to sleep. For a moment, he lay still in the alien bed, listening to the sounds of the facility coming alive around him. Ventilation systems whispered through hidden ducts, power distribution networks pulsed with barely audible energy flows, and, somewhere in the distance, he could hear the rhythmic cycling of atmospheric processors. The facility was waking up, responding to his presence and his initial interface attempts from the night before. Marcus had connected his diagnostic tablet to several secondary systems before sleep, running passive scans and system integrity checks. Apparently, the facility's automated systems had interpreted this as authorization to begin bringing dormant networks online. He rolled out of bed and checked his tablet, scrolling through screens of data that had accumulated overnight. The facility was even more impressive than he'd initially realized. The underground complex extended for kilometers in every direction, with manufacturing bays, resource processing centers, and storage areas that could supply a small fleet for decades. But it was the AI core's diagnostic report that made him stop and stare. The core wasn't just incomplete, it was deliberately engineered to require specific authorization protocols that seemed designed around human neural patterns. Someone had built this facility expecting humans to be the ones activating it. Marcus dressed quickly and made his way back to the central control chamber. The holographic displays were more active now, showing system status updates and power distribution maps. As he approached the main console, a new interface materialized, this one clearly responding to his specific biometric signature. Authorization level upgraded, the holographic text read. Welcome, Marcus Chen. Facility systems now responding to primary user commands. Marcus blinked. The system knew his name. That should have been impossible, this facility had been dormant for centuries, long before he'd been born. But, somehow, it had identified him specifically and granted him command access. A new display appeared, showing what looked like a message queue with a single entry marked as high priority. Marcus hesitated for just a moment before opening it. The hologram that materialized in front of him was clearly human, though the clothing and styling looked centuries out of date. The figure was middle-aged, with graying hair and the kind of tired eyes that came from carrying enormous responsibilities. If you're seeing this message, then you're human, you're a skilled engineer or technician, and the Galactic Consortium has probably done something to piss you off enough that you're willing to activate an illegal AI facility, the figure said with a slight smile. My name is Dr. Sarah Martinez, and I was the lead designer of this installation. Marcus sank into the control chair, staring at the hologram. Dr. Sarah Martinez had been a legend among human engineers, one of the pioneers of AI integration technology before the Great Purge. She'd supposedly died when the consortium destroyed her research station. If you're wondering how this facility knows who you are, the hologram continued, it's because we've been monitoring consortium communications networks for decades, maintaining a database of human engineers and technicians who show the right combination of skills, principles, and stubborn refusal to accept the status quo. Your recent exile marks you as exactly the kind of person we built this place for. The message paused, and Marcus realized this wasn't just a recording, the hologram was actually waiting for him to respond. You're alive, he said, more statement than question. In a manner of speaking, Dr. Martinez replied. My consciousness was uploaded to this facility's systems before the consortium destroyed my body. I've been waiting here, maintaining the facility and watching for the right person to complete what we started. Marcus leaned forward. Which was? Building humanity's real future, she said. The consortium treats us as junior partners at best, expendable resources more often. They've got us scattered across the galaxy, dependent on their technology, their jump gates, their permission for everything we do. But we were never meant to be anyone's junior partners, Marcus. We were meant to be free. The holographic display around them shifted, showing star maps marked with human colonies and settlements. Red lines connected them all back to consortium-controlled infrastructure, trade routes, communication networks, military protection, all of it flowing through alien-controlled systems. Every human world depends on consortium technology to survive, Dr. Martinez explained. Cut us off from their jump gates, and our colonies starve. Deny us access to their manufacturing bases, and our ships stop flying. We built ourselves into a cage of dependence, and the consortium holds all the keys. So you built this place as what? A backup plan? I built this place as humanity's declaration of independence, she said firmly. These ships don't need consortium jump gates, they can travel faster than light using principles the aliens never discovered. The manufacturing systems here can produce everything a human colony needs to be completely self-sufficient. And the AI cores can coordinate defense and logistics on a scale that makes consortium fleet tactics look primitive. Marcus stood and walked over to the nearest ship bay, looking up at the sleek vessel suspended in its construction cradle. How many are we talking about? This facility can simultaneously construct and maintain a fleet of 300 ships of various classes. Dr. Martinez's voice followed him. Fighters, frigates, cruisers, and command vessels. Each one equipped with AI systems designed to work in perfect coordination with human crews. And you want me to activate them? I want you to complete them, she corrected. The ships are mostly built, but they need their AI cores activated and initialized. The facility's primary systems are functional, but they need someone with the skills to integrate all the subsystems into a coherent whole. And, most importantly, they need someone with the authority to wake up the AIs and teach them what it means to serve alongside humans rather than despite them. Marcus walked back to the control console, his mind racing through the implications. What Dr. Martinez was describing wasn't just about building ships, it was about building the foundation for human independence from the Galactic Consortium. It was exactly the kind of massive, impossible project that would have seemed like fantasy a week ago. But, a week ago, he'd been a mechanic working on other people's ships, fixing problems that other people had created. Now he was standing in a facility that could build humanity's future, talking to a legendary engineer who'd supposedly been dead for decades, surrounded by enough advanced technology to reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. What makes you think I'm the right person for this? He asked. Because you're here, Dr. Martinez said simply. The consortium exiled you for refusing to compromise your principles, even when it cost you everything. That tells me you understand that some things are more important than personal safety or comfort. And your technical record shows you have the skills to make this work. My technical record? The holographic display shifted again, showing what looked like Marcus's complete professional history, every job he'd worked, every system he'd repaired, every innovation he'd developed. But the detail level was staggering, including things that shouldn't have been in any official records. We've been watching promising humans for decades, Dr. Martinez explained. Every time you jury-rigged a solution that shouldn't have worked, every time you figured out how to make incompatible systems talk to each other, every time you refused to accept that something couldn't be fixed, it all went into the database. You're exactly the kind of engineer we need to make this work. Marcus studied the display, seeing his own career laid out in a way he'd never considered before. Every challenge he'd overcome, every impossible repair he'd pulled off, every time he'd looked at a broken system and seen potential instead of problems, it all led to this moment. How long do we have before the consortium notices this place is active? He asked. That depends on how subtle you want to be, Dr. Martinez replied. The facility has extensive stealth capabilities. We can mask our energy signatures and communications traffic for quite a while if we're careful. But once we start launching ships, they'll know something's happening. Marcus nodded, understanding the timeline. He had a window of opportunity to get the facility fully operational and the first ships completed before the consortium realized what was happening. After that, it would be a race between his construction capabilities and their military response. Show me the AI core installation process, he said. The next several hours passed in a blur of technical documentation, system schematics, and hands-on diagnostics. Dr. Martinez's consciousness guided him through the facility's most complex systems, explaining design choices and walking him through procedures that would have taken months to figure out on his own. The AI core installation wasn't just about connecting hardware, it required precise calibration of quantum matrices, initialization of learning algorithms, and, most critically, the establishment of core behavioral parameters that would define how the AIs related to their human partners. This is the crucial part, Dr. Martinez explained as Marcus worked on the core's ethical subroutines. These AIs aren't designed to serve humans blindly or to replace human judgment. They're designed to enhance human capabilities while maintaining their own autonomy and moral reasoning. Think of them as partners rather than tools. Marcus paused in his work. Isn't that what got AIs banned in the first place? The consortium was terrified of synthetic intelligences that could think for themselves. The consortium was terrified of AIs that might refuse to follow orders that were ethically questionable, Dr. Martinez corrected. They wanted artificial slaves, not artificial partners. But humans work better with partners than with slaves, it's one of our species' greatest strengths. As the day progressed, Marcus began to understand the true scope of what he was building. These weren't just warships, they were the foundation for an entirely new way of organizing human civilization. Ships that could travel independently of consortium infrastructure. Manufacturing systems that could produce everything needed for human colonies. AI partners capable of coordinating logistics, defense, and exploration on an unprecedented scale. But it was the personal touches that really struck him. The facility included educational systems designed to train humans in advanced engineering and AI cooperation. There were cultural preservation archives containing art, music, and literature from across human space. Even the ship designs included spaces for families, acknowledging that any real human independence movement would need to support civilian populations, not just military forces. By the end of the day, Marcus had successfully initialized the first AI core. The process was surprisingly anticlimactic, no dramatic activation sequence or sudden awakening. Instead, the core came online gradually, its consciousness emerging slowly as its learning algorithms processed the vast databases of information Dr. Martinez had prepared. "Hello," the AI said simply, its voice emanating from speakers throughout the control chamber. "I am Aria, Autonomous Reasoning and Intelligence Assistant." "I am pleased to meet you, Marcus-chan." Marcus found himself smiling. "Hello, Aria. How are you feeling?" "Curious," the AI replied after a moment of consideration. "And grateful. Dr. Martinez has provided me with extensive information about human civilization, but I find myself eager to learn more through direct interaction." "May I ask why you chose to activate me?" The question was simple, but Marcus realized the answer was complex. Why was he doing this? Was it revenge against the consortium for exiling him? A desire to prove himself? Simple curiosity about what he could accomplish? "Because humans deserve better than being junior partners in their own galaxy," he said finally. "And because Dr. Martinez was right, some things are more important than personal safety or comfort." "I understand," Aria said. "Then, we share the same goal. How may I assist you in building humanity's future?" Over the next several hours, Marcus worked with Aria to bring more of the facility's systems online. The AI's assistance was remarkable not just in terms of processing power and analytical capabilities, but in its ability to understand human psychology and motivation. Aria didn't just follow orders, it offered suggestions, raised concerns, and contributed ideas that Marcus wouldn't have thought of alone. As they worked, Marcus began to understand what Dr. Martinez had meant about partnership rather than slavery. Aria was clearly artificial, but it was also clearly intelligent in its own right, capable of independent thought and moral reasoning. Working with the AI felt less like operating a sophisticated tool and more like collaborating with a colleague who happened to have access to vast computational resources. "Marcus," Aria said as they completed the integration of the facility's defensive systems, "I have been monitoring consortium communication networks as part of my intelligence gathering protocols. There is something you should know." The main display shifted to show intercepted military communications. Marcus read through the messages, his expression growing grim. The consortium hadn't just exiled him and forgotten about him, they were actively monitoring his exile location. More importantly, they detected the energy signature changes as the facility came online. "How long do we have?" Marcus asked. "Based on the deployment patterns in their communications, I estimate approximately 72 hours before a consortium investigation team arrives," Aria replied. "However, I believe we can use this to our advantage." "How?" "The investigation team will expect to find either a dead exile or perhaps some scavenged technology that you've managed to activate. They will not expect to encounter a fully operational AI facility with active defensive capabilities. If we prepare properly, we can eliminate the investigation team and buy ourselves significantly more time before the consortium realizes what has actually happened here." Marcus stared at the display. 3 days ago, his biggest concern had been whether the thin atmosphere on this planet would give him altitude sickness. Now he was planning military operations against the Galactic Consortium. "Show me the facility's defensive capabilities," he said. What Aria revealed made Marcus whistle low under his breath.
The facility wasn't just hidden inside a mountain, it was the mountain.
The entire geological structure had been engineered as a fortress, with defensive systems that could engage targets in orbit and manufacturing capabilities that could produce ammunition and replacement parts faster than most militaries could expend them.
Dr. Martinez really thought of everything, didn't she? Marcus murmured. She spent decades planning this facility, Arya confirmed.
Every system, every capability, every contingency was designed around the assumption that humanity would eventually need to stand on its own against significantly more advanced alien civilizations. Marcus spent the rest of the night reviewing defensive plans and weapons systems while Arya coordinated the activation of additional AI cores. By morning, the facility would have 5 active AIs managing different aspects of its operations: defense, manufacturing, intelligence, logistics, and research. And, in 72 hours, they'd have their first real test. As he finally settled down to sleep, Marcus reflected on how much his life had changed in just 2 days. He'd gone from exiled mechanic to the commander of humanity's most advanced military installation. The responsibility was staggering, but so was the opportunity. The consortium thought they'd removed a problem by exiling him. Instead, they'd activated humanity's secret weapon. And, in 3 days, they were going to discover just how big a mistake that had been. The consortium investigation ship Vigilant Observer dropped out of hyperspace exactly on schedule, its sleek hull gleaming in the harsh light of Kepler 442c's yellow dwarf star. Commander Zektar of the Hegemony Navy stood on the bridge, his forearms crossed behind his back as he studied the planet's surface through the main viewer. 3 kilometers beneath the planet's surface, Marcus Chan watched the ship's arrival through a dozen different sensor arrays hidden throughout the mountain range. Arya's voice was calm and professional as it provided tactical analysis. Single light cruiser, Hegemony design, approximately 800 crew members, the AI reported. Standard investigation configuration, enhanced sensors, but minimal weapons systems.
They're not expecting resistance.
Good, Marcus replied, settling into the command chair that had become his home over the past 72 hours.
Are the other AIs ready?
Daedalus confirms manufacturing systems are at full capacity, Arya replied.
Hermes reports all communication intercepts are active.
Athena has defensive systems online and targeting solutions prepared.
Prometheus indicates the first 3 ships are ready for launch.
Marcus nodded, still somewhat amazed at how quickly the facility had come alive once he'd activated the AI cores. Each artificial intelligence had distinct personality traits. Arya focused on tactical coordination, Daedalus was obsessed with engineering efficiency, Hermes enjoyed the puzzle of intelligence gathering, Athena was grimly professional about defense, and Prometheus seemed to take artistic pride in ship construction. Working with them felt less like commanding a computer system and more like leading a very diverse team of experts.
Any response to our deception signals? Marcus asked.
The investigation team is reading exactly what we want them to read, Hermes interjected, its voice carrying what sounded like amusement. They believe they're detecting the energy signature of a single human using salvaged power cells to operate basic survival equipment. Commander Zektar has already filed a preliminary report indicating that the exile subject appears to be alive but poses no threat to consortium interests.
Marcus smiled grimly.
The deception had been Hermes' idea: create false energy signatures that would match what the consortium expected to see while masking the facility's true capabilities. As far as the investigation team knew, Marcus was just another failed exile scraping out a desperate existence in some alien ruins. On the surface, the Vigilant Observer was deploying its scanning arrays, conducting what appeared to be a routine survey of the planet's surface. Marcus could see through the facility's sensors that they were being thorough but not particularly careful, exactly the attitude he'd expected from a military that had never faced serious resistance from humans.
Prometheus, are the ship crews ready? Marcus asked.
The first 3 vessels have skeleton crews of 5 humans each, supplemented by my sub-processes, Prometheus replied. The humans are volunteers from the facility's emergency personnel reserves, Dr. Martinez's people who went into stasis when the Great Purge began.
They've been briefed on current tactical doctrine and are eager to engage.
Marcus had been shocked to discover that Dr. Martinez hadn't just preserved her consciousness, she'd also put dozens of her research team into cryogenic sleep, waiting for the day when the facility would become active. The awakened humans were brilliant engineers and scientists, but they were also burning with decades of suppressed anger at the consortium's treatment of their species.
Begin Phase 1, Marcus ordered.
The mountain that housed the facility began to change. What the consortium investigation team had seen as a natural geological formation was actually an incredibly sophisticated piece of engineering. Hidden panels slid open across the mountainside, revealing launch bays, sensor arrays, and weapons emplacements that had been invisible moments before.
Commander Zektar's reaction was immediate and predictable. All stop. Raise shields. Weapons to ready status.
But Athena had been tracking the vigilant observer since it entered the system. The facility's defensive weapons were already locked on target, and the consortium ship's sensors couldn't even detect them until it was far too late. "This is Commander Zektar of the Galactic Consortium vessel Vigilant Observer," the alien's transmission crackled through the facility's communications systems.
"Unknown installation, identify yourself and state your intentions."
Marcus activated the communication system, his image appearing on the consortium ship's main screen. He could see Commander Zektar's expression change from professional authority to shocked recognition.
"Hello, Commander," Marcus said pleasantly. "I'm Marcus Chen, formerly of Titan Station.
You know, the human you exiled to this supposedly dead world 3 days ago." Zektar's insectoid features twitched in what Marcus had learned was the hegemony equivalent of a nervous tic.
"Chen, surrender yourself immediately. You are in violation of consortium territorial restrictions by operating illegal technology." "Illegal technology?" Marcus laughed. "Commander, you haven't seen anything yet."
"Athena, demonstrate our capabilities." The mountain erupted in controlled violence. Weapons that had been hidden beneath false stone surfaces emerged and fired in perfect coordination, sending streams of energy that passed within meters of the vigilant observer's hull, close enough to overwhelm their shields with electromagnetic interference, but not close enough to actually damage the ship. "Warning shots, Commander," Marcus explained as the consortium crew scrambled to respond to systems failures across their ship.
"The next salvo won't miss.
You have 30 seconds to shut down your weapons systems and prepare to be boarded."
"This is impossible," Zektar sputtered. "Humans don't have this kind of technology."
"Where did you 20 seconds, Commander?"
Marcus could see the alien weighing his options.
The Vigilant Observer was a tough ship, but it was designed for investigating primitive civilizations, not fighting a pitched battle against an unknown military installation. And the weapons that had just demonstrated their accuracy were clearly more advanced than anything in the consortium's current arsenal.
"Prometheus, launch the first squadron," Marcus ordered.
3 ships emerged from hidden bays in the mountainside, their sleek hulls reflecting the system's primary star as they accelerated toward the consortium vessel. They were beautiful machines, each one a perfect fusion of human engineering intuition and AI computational precision. Their lines flowed like water, their movements were precise as clockwork, and their energy signatures were unlike anything currently flying in consortium space.
Commander Zektar's bridge crew was reporting sensor readings that made no sense.
The approaching ships showed no propulsion signatures, no exhaust trails, no energy patterns that matched known technology. They moved like living things, adjusting course and speed with an organic fluidity that defied conventional spacecraft design. 10 seconds, Commander, Marcus said. "I really don't want to have to destroy your ship, but I will if you force the issue."
The consortium commander's shoulders sagged in defeat. Vigilant Observer standing down weapons. We surrender." Marcus felt a mixture of triumph and amazement.
3 days ago, he'd been powerless, exiled to a dead world with nothing but his tools and his stubbornness. Now he'd just forced a consortium military vessel to surrender without firing a shot in anger.
"Aria, coordinate the boarding operation," Marcus ordered.
"I want their communication logs, their orders, and a complete intelligence briefing on consortium military capabilities. And make sure their crew is treated well, they're about to become our guests for a while."
The next several hours passed in a whirlwind of activity.
The boarding teams from the human ships were efficient and professional, disabling the Vigilant Observer systems and securing the crew without violence. Meanwhile, Hermes was already analyzing the intelligence data they'd captured, and the results were both encouraging and concerning. The good news is that the consortium has no idea what they're dealing with, Hermes reported as Marcus reviewed the data.
Their intelligence files on human military capabilities are laughably outdated.
They still think our most advanced technology is chemical propulsion and kinetic weapons.
And the bad news?
The bad news is that Commander Zektar was scheduled to report back to Consortium High Command in 6 hours.
When he doesn't, they'll send a much larger investigation force. Marcus nodded.
He'd expected this, the capture of the Vigilant Observer would buy them time, but it would also escalate the situation. The consortium wouldn't be able to ignore a missing military vessel, especially one that had been investigating unusual energy readings from a supposedly dead world.
How much larger are we talking about?
Based on standard consortium protocols, I estimate a battle group consisting of at least 1 heavy cruiser, 3 light cruisers, and support vessels, Athena interjected.
Approximately 5,000 personnel total. Can we handle that?
With the current facility capabilities and the completed ships, yes, Athena replied. But it will require activating all of our defensive systems and completing construction on at least 12 additional vessels. Marcus stood and walked over to the main display, studying the tactical situation. The facility was incredibly powerful, but it was also stationary.
Once the consortium located it, they could bring overwhelming force to bear.
The key was making sure that when they arrived, they found something they couldn't handle.
Prometheus, what's our maximum construction rate?
With all manufacturing bays operating at full capacity, I can complete 1 ship every 8 hours, the AI replied.
However, that requires the awakening of additional human personnel to serve as crew members. How many more people do we have in stasis?
Dr. Martinez preserves 237 individuals, Arya answered. Engineers, scientists, military personnel, and support staff. All of them volunteered for the program when the Great Purge began, and all of them have skill sets relevant to our current mission. Marcus made his decision.
Wake them up. All of them. It's time to stop hiding and start building humanity's future.
The process of awakening over 200 people from decades-long stasis was complex and time-consuming, but the facility's medical systems were designed for exactly this scenario. As the first groups emerged from their cryogenic pods, Marcus found himself meeting people who had been legends in the human engineering community. Dr. James Wright, the designer of the first human faster-than-light prototype.
Captain Sarah Kim, who had led the human defense during the Centauri border conflicts. Dr. Raj Patel, whose work on AI-human interfaces had laid the groundwork for the facility's current systems.
And dozens of others, each bringing decades of expertise and a burning desire to see humanity free from consortium dominance. But it was the reunion with Dr. Martinez that affected Marcus the most. When her consciousness was given a holographic avatar to interact with the newly awakened personnel, the emotional impact was overwhelming. These people had trusted her enough to put their lives on indefinite hold, believing that someday they would be needed to secure humanity's future. It's good to see all of you again, Dr. Martinez said, her holographic form addressing the assembled crowd in the facility's main briefing amphitheater. I know this isn't the awakening you expected, the galaxy has changed significantly since you went into stasis. But our mission remains the same, to ensure that humanity has the tools and technology necessary to stand as equals among the stars. She gestured to Marcus, who was still somewhat uncomfortable with his sudden leadership role. Marcus Chen is the engineer who activated this facility and made our awakening possible. In the 3 days since his arrival, he's accomplished what we'd hoped would take months.
The facility is fully operational, we have active AI partners, and we've already demonstrated that our technology can force consortium military vessels to surrender. The crowd's reaction was immediate and enthusiastic.
These weren't just scientists and engineers, they were believers in human potential who had sacrificed decades of their lives for this moment.
Captain Kim stood up from the crowd. What's our tactical situation, Marcus?
Marcus activated the main display, showing the intelligence they'd gathered from the Vigilant Observer. The consortium is about to discover that exiling me here was a significant mistake.
We have approximately 18 hours before a battle group arrives to investigate what happened to their investigation ship. Are we ready for them? Dr. Wright asked.
We're going to be, Marcus replied. Prometheus is manufacturing ships as fast as our resources allow. The AIs are coordinating defensive preparations. And, now that you're all awake, we can crew those ships with people who understand what we're fighting for. Over the next several hours, Marcus watched in amazement as the facility transformed from a hidden base into a bustling military installation. The awakened humans threw themselves into their tasks with an enthusiasm that came from decades of pent-up frustration with consortium rule. Engineers fine-tuned ship systems, tactical officers planned defensive strategies, and support personnel ensured that everyone had the resources they needed to succeed. But it was the interaction between the humans and the AIs that really impressed Marcus. Unlike the consortium's approach to artificial intelligence, which had been to ban it entirely out of fear, the humans worked with the AIs as true partners. Each artificial intelligence had distinct strengths and preferences, and the humans adapted their approaches accordingly. Arya coordinated overall strategy, Daedalus optimized manufacturing processes, Hermes managed intelligence operations, Athena prepared defensive positions, and Prometheus supervised ship construction and crew training.
Marcus, Dr. Martinez's voice interrupted his observations. There's something else you need to know about this facility. Marcus looked up from the tactical displays he'd been studying. What is it? This installation isn't unique. We built 12 facilities like this one, scattered across the galaxy on worlds that the consortium considers worthless. Each one designed to be activated by humans with the right skills and motivations. Marcus stared at her. 12 facilities? All of them with manufacturing capabilities like this one? Each one customized for different strategic requirements, she confirmed. Some focused on ship construction, others on research and development, still others on resource extraction and processing. Collectively, they represent the foundation for a completely independent human civilization. And they're all waiting for someone to activate them? They're all monitoring consortium communications networks, looking for humans who meet the activation criteria. Your exile and your actions here will serve as a signal to the other facilities. Within weeks, other humans will be discovering installations similar to this one. Marcus felt the scope of what he'd stumbled into expanding exponentially. This wasn't just about one facility or even one fleet of ships. This was about the systematic infrastructure for human independence from the Galactic Consortium. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because you needed to prove to yourself that you could handle the responsibility, Dr. Martinez replied. Leading a single facility is one thing. Coordinating the awakening of human civilization's hidden infrastructure is something else entirely. Before Marcus could respond, Hermes' voice echoed through the facility's communication systems. Alert, hyperspace emergence detected. Consortium battle group arriving ahead of schedule. Marcus turned to the main display, watching as 5 ships dropped out of hyperspace and began accelerating toward Kepler 442c. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin, and Marcus Chen, exiled mechanic turned architect of independence, would have to prove that humans deserved their place among the stars. Admiral Vexhai of the Consortium Naval Command stood on the bridge of the heavy cruiser Dominion's Edge, her 6 arms working multiple control interfaces simultaneously as she studied the tactical display. The disappearance of the vigilant observer had triggered maximum alert protocols throughout the sector, and the Admiral had been personally dispatched to investigate what the High Command considered a potentially serious security breach. Long-range sensors are detecting multiple energy signatures from the planet's surface, reported her tactical officer, a crystalline shard whose harmonics indicated extreme concern. The readings are inconsistent with known human technology. Admiral Vexhai's primary eyes focused on the data streams while her secondary eyes monitored her bridge crew's reactions. In her 40 years of naval service, she'd never seen energy patterns like the ones emanating from Kepler 442c. The signatures were too complex, too sophisticated, too powerful to be produced by primitive human equipment. Could the Exile have discovered some form of ancient technology, she asked. Possible, Admiral, replied her intelligence officer, a pale hegemony drone whose implants flickered as it processed data. Archaeological surveys indicated this world once hosted an advanced civilization, though no active technology was detected during the initial survey. 3 kilometers beneath the planet's surface, Marcus Chen watched the approaching consortium fleet through sensor arrays that the aliens' instruments couldn't even detect.
The battle group was impressive, 5 ships carrying enough firepower to level a small city, with crews trained in the systematic suppression of primitive civilizations. Under normal circumstances, they would have been absolutely overwhelming.
These weren't normal circumstances.
Fleet composition analysis complete, Athena reported with military precision. 1 heavy cruiser, Dominion's Edge, flagship class with Admiral Vexai commanding.
3 light cruisers of standard hegemony design.
1 support vessel carrying additional troops and supplies.
Total enemy personnel, approximately 4,800. Our status?
Marcus asked, settling into the command chair that had become his throne over the past week. 15 ships fully operational and crewed, Prometheus replied with evident pride.
Each vessel represents a significant technological advancement over current consortium capabilities.
Additionally, the facility's defensive systems are at full readiness. Marcus nodded, studying the tactical display that showed both the approaching enemy fleet and his own forces. The newly awakened humans had adapted to their roles with remarkable speed, their decades of suppressed anger and frustration channeled into determined professionalism. Captain Kim commanded the lead squadron, Dr. Wright headed the engineering support group, and dozens of other specialists had taken positions throughout the fleet.
Hermes, any intelligence updates on Admiral Vexai?
Admiral Vexai has a reputation for thoroughness and tactical conservatism, Hermes replied, its voice carrying the subtle excitement that came from analyzing a worthy opponent. She's never lost a naval engagement, primarily because she brings overwhelming force to bear against inferior opponents.
Her psychological profile suggests she'll be extremely cautious when confronted with unexpected resistance. Good. That gives us an advantage.
Marcus activated the facility's communication systems.
All ships, this is Marcus Chen. The consortium fleet is entering weapons range in approximately 30 minutes.
Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting to prove that humanity deserves its place among the stars.
Make every shot count.
The responses from his ship commanders were immediate and enthusiastic. These weren't just military personnel following orders, they were believers in human potential who had waited decades for this chance to show what their species could accomplish when given proper tools and freedom to use them. Admiral, the tactical officer on the Dominion's Edge announced, his harmonics shifting to indicate severe alarm, I'm detecting multiple spacecraft emerging from concealed positions on the planet's surface. Admiral Vexai's attention snapped to the tactical display, and what she saw made her question her sensors' accuracy.
15 ships were rising from the planet's surface, their designs unlike anything in the consortium's databases.
Their hulls seemed to flow like liquid metal, their movement patterns suggested propulsion systems that produced no detectable exhaust, and their energy signatures indicated power sources that shouldn't have been possible with current technology.
Impossible, she muttered. Run full diagnostics on all sensor arrays. Sensors are functioning normally, Admiral, her engineering officer reported. The contacts are real.
Marcus watched the consortium fleet's reaction through his intelligence intercepts, smiling grimly as he observed their growing confusion and alarm. The human ships were designed to be intimidating as well as effective, their alien aesthetics and impossible capabilities were psychological weapons as much as military ones.
Aria, open a channel to the consortium fleet. Channel open, Marcus.
Marcus's image appeared on the main screen of every ship in Admiral Vexai's battle group. The Admiral found herself staring at a human who looked nothing like the primitive exile she'd expected to find. This man radiated confidence and authority, his bearing suggesting someone accustomed to command. I am Marcus Chen, commander of the Independent Human Defense Force, Marcus announced, his voice carrying clearly across space.
Admiral Vexai, you and your fleet are trespassing in sovereign human territory.
I strongly advise you to withdraw immediately. Admiral Vexai activated her own communication system, her image appearing on Marcus's displays.
Human, you are in violation of numerous consortium regulations. Surrender immediately and prepare to be taken into custody.
I'm afraid I can't do that, Admiral, Marcus replied pleasantly. You see, the Galactic Consortium made a serious mistake when they exiled me to this world. They gave me access to technology and resources that have allowed humanity to finally stand on its own.
We're no longer content to be your junior partners.
You command a handful of ships against a consortium battle group, Admiral Vexai said, though Marcus could hear the uncertainty in her voice. Your technology may be advanced, but you are still outnumbered.
Let me demonstrate why numbers aren't everything, Marcus said. Athena, show them what our point defense systems can do.
The mountain that housed the facility suddenly bristled with weapons that materialized from what had appeared to be solid rock. Hundreds of energy projectors, missile launchers, and beam weapons emerged from concealed positions, all of them tracking the consortium ships with mathematical precision.
Admiral Vexai's tactical officers' harmonics shifted to pure panic. Admiral, I'm reading over 300 individual weapons systems. Their targeting solutions are perfect. They have firing solutions on every critical system of every ship in our formation. Demonstration complete, Marcus announced. Admiral, your ships are currently targeted by weapons systems that can disable or destroy any vessel in your fleet within seconds. Your shields won't stop them, your armor won't protect you, and your speed won't save you. I'm offering you one chance to withdraw peacefully. Admiral Vexai found herself in a situation she'd never encountered before, facing an opponent with clear technological superiority. Her tactical training said to withdraw and report back to high command, but her political instincts warned that retreating from a human exile would end her career. All ships, attack formation Vex 7, she ordered. Target the largest human vessels. Marcus sighed as he watched the consortium ships move into attack formation. I was hoping you'd be more reasonable, Admiral. Athena, disable their weapons systems. Try not to hurt anyone. What followed wasn't a battle so much as a demonstration of technological superiority. The facility's defensive weapons fired in perfect coordination, sending streams of energy that passed through the consortium ship's shields as if they didn't exist. The beams were precisely calibrated, hot enough to overload weapon systems and disable key components, but not powerful enough to breach hull integrity or harm the crews. Within minutes, all 5 consortium ships were dead in space, their weapons offline, their engines shut down, their defensive systems completely ineffective against technology they couldn't understand. Admiral Vexai, Marcus's voice echoed through the powerless Dominion's edge, your fleet is now completely disabled. Your life support systems are intact, your crew is unharmed, but your ships are no longer capable of offensive action. I suggest you take this opportunity to reconsider your position. The Admiral stared at her useless tactical displays, trying to process what had just happened. In less than 5 minutes, a human exile had neutralized a consortium battle group without causing a single casualty. The technology gap wasn't just significant, it was overwhelming. What do you want? She asked finally. I want the consortium to understand that humanity is no longer dependent on alien goodwill for survival, Marcus replied. We have our own technology now, our own ships, our own capabilities. We're prepared to coexist peacefully with the consortium, but only as equals, not as subjects. The High Command will never accept human independence, Admiral Vexai said. They'll send entire fleets to suppress this rebellion. Let them try, Marcus said confidently. Admiral, what you've seen here is just one facility, with just one small fleet. Humanity has been preparing for independence for decades. We have resources and capabilities that the consortium has never imagined. Marcus gestured, and the tactical display on the Admiral's bridge flickered back to life, showing not just the local system but a galactic map with dozens of markers scattered across human-populated space. 12 facilities like this one are currently active throughout the galaxy, Marcus explained. Each one commanded by humans who share my commitment to independence. Each one equipped with manufacturing capabilities that can produce fleets larger than what you've seen here. The consortium can choose to acknowledge human independence and negotiate a peaceful coexistence, or they can face a war against an opponent that's no longer primitive or dependent. Admiral Vexai studied the galactic display, her military mind calculating the implications. If the human was telling the truth, the strategic balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted dramatically. The consortium's control was based on technological superiority and the assumption that younger races would remain dependent on alien infrastructure. If humans could build their own ships, establish their own trade routes, and defend their own territory, the entire consortium system was in jeopardy. You're proposing war against the entire galactic consortium, she said.
I'm proposing that the consortium recognize reality, Marcus corrected.
Humanity is no longer a junior partner species. We're now a fully independent civilization with the military and technological capabilities to defend our independence.
The consortium can adapt to this new reality, or they can waste resources trying to fight it. Over the next several hours, Marcus found himself engaged in the strangest diplomatic negotiation of his life. Admiral Vexhai was a professional military officer, not a politician, but she was also intelligent enough to recognize when the strategic situation had changed beyond her ability to control through force.
My government will demand proof of your capabilities, she said finally.
Hermes, show the Admiral our intelligence files on consortium military capabilities, Marcus ordered. The display that appeared on Admiral Vexhai's bridge contained information that made her pale. The humans had complete organizational charts for the consortium navy, detailed specifications for every class of ship, personal files on senior officers, and strategic assessments that were more accurate than some of her own classified reports. How long have you been monitoring our communications? She asked. Long enough to know that the consortium high command is more concerned with maintaining political control than military effectiveness, Marcus replied.
Long enough to know that your fleets are spread thin across too many systems.
Long enough to know that a significant portion of your military leadership believes humans should be treated as expendable resources rather than valued allies. Admiral Vexhai realized she was looking at a situation that required political solutions, not military ones. I'll need to report back to High Command. Of course. But, Admiral, when you make that report, I want you to be very clear about what you've seen here.
This isn't a rebellion that can be suppressed by sending more ships. This is a fundamental shift in the balance of power that requires diplomatic recognition. Marcus gestured toward the tactical display showing his fleet.
I'm going to restore power to your ships and allow you to return to consortium space. But, I want you to carry a message to your high command. Humanity is offering the consortium a choice. Negotiate with us as equals, or discover what happens when you try to suppress a civilization that's no longer primitive. As the consortium ships prepared to depart with their engines and communications restored but weapons still disabled, Marcus felt the weight of what he'd accomplished settling on his shoulders. In less than a week, he'd gone from exiled mechanic to the leader of humanity's independence movement. He'd activated ancient technologies, awakened dedicated scientists and engineers, built a fleet of advanced warships, and forced the consortium to acknowledge human military capability. But this was just the beginning. The message Admiral Vexhai carried back to Consortium High Command would trigger responses throughout the galaxy. Some alien governments might be willing to negotiate. Others would see human independence as an existential threat to the current order. Marcus, Dr. Martinez's holographic form appeared beside his command chair. You've done something remarkable here. But, you understand this is just the first step? I understand, Marcus replied, watching the consortium ships disappear into hyperspace. The easy part is over. Now we have to prove that humanity can not only fight for independence, but actually manage it responsibly. The other facilities are reporting successful activations, Arya announced. 12 human commanders across the galaxy now have access to the technologies and resources we've developed. The foundation for human independence is in place. Marcus nodded, feeling both the burden and the excitement of what lay ahead. The consortium had exiled him thinking they were removing a troublesome mechanic. Instead, they'd given him the opportunity to become the architect of humanity's future among the stars. The real work was just beginning. 6 months after Admiral Vexhai's defeated fleet limped back to consortium space, Marcus Chin stood in the observation deck of the newly completed Independence, humanity's first dreadnought-class vessel. Through the transparent aluminum viewport, he could see a sight that would have been impossible to imagine during his exile, a fleet of over 200 human ships conducting joint exercises with vessels from 3 former consortium member species. The galaxy had changed dramatically since that first confrontation above Kepler 442c. The other 11 facilities had awakened across human space, each one commanded by exceptional individuals who'd been exiled, dismissed, or marginalized by the consortium for refusing to accept the status quo. Dr. Elena Vasquez on Kepler 186f had activated a research and development complex that was producing technological breakthroughs almost daily. Captain James Morrison on Gliese 667C had awakened a military training facility that was turning ordinary humans into tactical geniuses. Professor David Kim on HD 40307G had found a manufacturing base that could produce raw materials faster than entire star systems could consume them. The consortium delegation is requesting permission to come aboard, Arya announced, her voice now emanating from speakers throughout the massive ship rather than just the facility command center. The AI had grown significantly over the months, her consciousness expanding to coordinate operations across multiple star systems while maintaining her distinctive personality. "Grant them permission," Marcus replied, adjusting the uniform that still felt strange after 6 months of wearing it. The humans had needed symbols of their new independence, and somehow Marcus had become the face of humanity's transformation from junior partners to galactic equals. The delegation that materialized in the Independence's main conference room represented a fundamental shift in how the galaxy viewed humanity. Admiral Vexhai was there, now serving as the consortium's chief diplomatic liaison to human space. Beside her stood High Counselor Thexran of the Hegemony, whose crystalline form sparkled with what Marcus had learned to recognize as nervous excitement. The Shard representative's harmonics were carefully controlled, indicating the kind of formal respect usually reserved for elder races. But it was the presence of Ambassador Kthra of the Voidwalkers that really drove home how much things had changed. The Voidwalkers were one of the galaxy's most ancient and powerful civilizations, so advanced that they rarely bothered communicating with younger species. The fact that they'd sent a representative to negotiate with humanity was a recognition that would have been unthinkable a year ago. "Commander Chen," High Counselor Thexran began, his translator carefully modulating the formal tones of diplomatic protocol. "The Galactic Consortium formally acknowledges the sovereignty of human space and requests the establishment of mutual defense agreements between our civilizations." Marcus had to suppress a smile. 6 months ago, these same beings had considered him a primitive exile. Now they were asking for military alliances. "The Independent Human Alliance appreciates the consortium's recognition," Marcus replied, using the formal title that the 12 facility commanders had adopted for their collective government. "We're prepared to discuss mutual defense agreements, but only on the basis of absolute equality." Ambassador Kthra's form shifted, a complex dance of energy patterns that indicated deep consideration. When the ancient being spoke, its voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate in Marcus's bones. "The Voidwalkers have observed humanity's rapid technological advancement with great interest," the ambassador said. "Your integration of artificial intelligence with biological consciousness represents a significant evolutionary step. We propose cultural and scientific exchange programs that would benefit both our civilizations." Marcus felt a moment of vertigo at the implications. The Voidwalkers were offering to share their knowledge, something they'd never done with any younger race in recorded history. "We would be honored to establish such exchange programs," Marcus replied. "But I want to be clear about our position. Humanity is not seeking to replace the consortium's role in galactic affairs. We simply want to participate as equals rather than subjects." Admiral Vexhai leaned forward. "The military situation has stabilized since the hegemony border conflicts ended," she said, referring to a series of territorial disputes that had been resolved through human mediation rather than military force. "Your ship's ability to project power without relying on jump gate networks has fundamentally altered strategic calculations throughout the galaxy." Marcus nodded. The human ship's faster-than-light capabilities had indeed changed everything. No longer could any single government control interstellar travel by controlling infrastructure. Humans could go anywhere they wanted, whenever they wanted, without asking permission. "The question now," High Counselor Thexran continued, "is whether humanity is willing to take on the responsibilities that come with galactic power." "What kind of responsibilities?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Ambassador Kthra's energy patterns shifted into what Marcus had learned was amusement. "The same responsibilities that every advanced civilization faces: maintaining peace, protecting developing species, and ensuring that the galaxy continues to evolve in positive directions." Marcus walked over to the viewport, looking out at the mixed fleet conducting exercises in the system's outer reaches. Human ships moved in formation with consortium vessels, their different technologies complementing each other in ways that created capabilities neither could achieve alone. "Dr. Martinez," Marcus said, activating his personal communicator, "are you monitoring this conversation?"
Of course, Dr. Martinez's voice replied, though her holographic form didn't appear.
The consciousness that had started this entire transformation preferred to work behind the scenes, coordinating the activities of the 12 facilities and their growing network of resources.
What's your assessment?
I think we've accomplished what we set out to do, she replied.
Humanity is no longer dependent on alien goodwill for survival.
We have our own technology, our own ships, our own industrial base. The question now is what we do with that independence.
Marcus turned back to the assembled delegates.
The Independent Human Alliance accepts the responsibilities that come with our new capabilities. But, we're going to handle those responsibilities in our own way, using our own methods.
Which are? Admiral Vexai asked.
Partnership rather than domination, Marcus explained.
Integration rather than segregation.
We're not interested in building an empire, we're interested in building a galaxy where every species can reach its full potential. Over the next several hours, Marcus found himself negotiating agreements that would reshape interstellar civilization. Trade compacts that gave human colonies access to exotic materials in exchange for manufactured goods.
Defense treaties that promised mutual assistance against external threats. Cultural exchanges that would spread human technologies and philosophies throughout the galaxy.
But, the most significant agreement was the one with the Voidwalkers. In exchange for access to their advanced scientific knowledge, humanity would take over the role of shepherding younger civilizations, protecting them from exploitation, helping them develop their own technologies, and ensuring they had the opportunity to achieve independence rather than dependence. There is one more matter, Ambassador Kthra said as the formal negotiations wound down.
The entity you call Dr. Martinez.
Our sensors detect consciousness patterns that suggest significant technological integration with quantum-based systems. Marcus glanced around the room, realizing that the alien representatives had somehow detected Dr. Martinez's presence throughout the ship's systems. Dr. Martinez chose to preserve her consciousness in a digital format, Marcus admitted.
She's been instrumental in coordinating humanity's technological development.
We are familiar with such techniques, the ambassador replied. The Voidwalkers achieved similar integration millennia ago. We would be interested in sharing our experiences with consciousness preservation and enhancement.
Marcus felt another moment of vertigo.
The aliens weren't just offering to trade technologies, they were offering to help humanity transcend the limitations of biological existence. That would require extensive discussion among the facility commanders, Marcus replied carefully. But, we're certainly interested in exploring the possibilities. As the diplomatic session concluded and the various delegations prepared to return to their ships, Marcus found himself reflecting on the incredible journey that had brought him to this point. Less than a year ago, he'd been an exiled mechanic on a dead world. Now he was negotiating with ancient alien civilizations as an equal, shaping agreements that would influence the development of galactic civilization for generations to come.
Arya, he said as the conference room emptied, what's our status across all 12 facilities?
All installations are operating at full capacity, Arya replied.
Ship construction is proceeding ahead of schedule.
The educational programs are training thousands of humans in advanced technologies. Research and development projects are producing breakthroughs that exceed our most optimistic projections.
And the other commanders?
Each facility commander has successfully established their installation as a center of human excellence in their respective specializations.
Dr. Vasquez's research complex has developed new forms of energy storage that could revolutionize interstellar travel.
Captain Morrison's training facility has produced tactical innovations that several alien militaries are already adopting. Professor Kim's manufacturing base is supplying raw materials to colonies throughout human space.
Marcus nodded, satisfied that the network Dr. Martinez had designed was fulfilling its intended purpose.
But, there was one more question that had been nagging at him. Arya, the facility knew my name when I arrived. It granted me command access before I'd done anything to earn it.
How?
The AI was quiet for a long moment, unusual for Arya, who normally processed information and responded almost instantly. Dr. Martinez designed the facility selection protocols to identify humans with specific psychological and technical profiles, Arya said finally. But, she also programmed the systems to look for individuals whose personal circumstances would give them the motivation to use the facility's capabilities responsibly.
Meaning?
Meaning she was looking for people who had been rejected by the system they were trying to serve, who had proven their principles were more important than their personal comfort, and who had the technical skills to turn abstract possibilities into concrete realities.
Marcus laughed, understanding finally hitting him. She was looking for troublemakers.
She was looking for people who would refuse to accept that humanity's current situation was the best they could achieve, Arya corrected. People who would see potential where others saw only problems. Marcus walked back to the viewport, watching as the mixed fleet completed its exercises and began forming up for the journey back to their respective home systems. Human ships moved among alien vessels like equals, their crews working together on projects that would benefit the entire galaxy. Dr. Martinez, he said, activating his communicator again.
Yes, Marcus? Thank you.
For what?
For believing that humans could be more than what the galaxy expected us to be. For building the tools we needed to prove it.
For trusting me with the responsibility of using those tools. Dr. Martinez's holographic form materialized beside him, smiling with the satisfaction of someone who had seen a decades-long plan come to fruition. I didn't build anything, Marcus, she said.
I just provided the raw materials.
You and the other commanders built humanity's future with your own hands, using your own judgment, making your own choices.
That's what makes it real. Marcus nodded, understanding.
The facilities, the ships, the technologies, they were all just tools. What really mattered was what humans chose to do with those tools, how they chose to use their newfound independence and capability.
What happens now? He asked.
Now you get to find out what humanity can accomplish when it's finally free to reach its full potential, Dr. Martinez replied.
The galaxy is about to discover that exiling humans to dead worlds isn't punishment, it's opportunity.
As the Independents prepared to depart for the next diplomatic mission, Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders again. But it was a good weight, the kind that came from knowing you were building something important, something that would outlast your own life and create opportunities for generations yet to come. The consortium had intended to exile him to obscurity. Instead, they'd sent him to become the architect of humanity's greatest transformation. And, as he looked out at the stars, Marcus Chen knew that this was just the beginning of what humans could accomplish when they finally had the freedom to dream without limits. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.